Hey guys, welcome to episode number 83 of the Big Time Strength Podcast. Really excited today to bring on Coach Trevor Florendo. He's the head strength conditioning coach and the director of sports science at Colorado School of Mines. Coach Florendo is awesome. He did an outstanding job in this interview, and I really took a lot away from him. Very engaging, and then he also goes on a couple rants here and there too, which is always fun. So really appreciate Coach Florendo coming on the show, taking his time because he just had a new baby boy too, and you're in January, not too long ago. So very busy for him to come on the show was awesome. So before we get to him, I'd like to recognize our awesome sponsors. So we got Team Builder. They're the leading software for high schools and colleges by providing coaches the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. If you sign up with code BIGTIME, you will receive a free APRE programming template, which works automatically within Team Builder. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with Team Builder. Hewitt and his crew are just fantastic. They run a great operation there, and I'm actually really excited here at Jewel. I just got approved. I'm going to get some more iPads. So now we're going to end up with an iPad on every rack eventually here, which is going to allow us to use Team Builder to its full effect. So really excited about that. Please contact Hewitt or Team Builder if you have questions. Our next sponsor is Powerlift. They are the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for college and high school athletic performance centers around the world. Powerlift brings over 20 years of experience in the strength conditioning world. All products are manufactured in their state-of-the-art facility in Jefferson, Iowa. They're proud to support all coaches making the big time where they're at. Really appreciate Powerlift. If you want to reach out to them, please look at the show notes. Coach or Mike Richardson's contact information is in there. You can reach him at that email, and they will help you out with whatever needs you've got. Powerlift, great company. Excited to have them on to support the show. Guys, the last thing I have for you today is something I want to make sure you're aware of, especially if you're listening kind of in the Midwest region. We have the Big Time Strength and Football Clinic. This is Saturday, March 28th. This is going to include 21 premier college and high school presenters that half are presenting on like football topics, half are presenting on strength conditioning topics. So if you got a football coach who might be interested, bring them along too. It's only $30 for individuals and $75 for staff. This is in Mount Vernon, Iowa. So this is 100% Preston's deal. It's got Big Time Strength's name on it, but Preston has done all the work on this and set it all up. You'll get a free t-shirt as well. If you want to register, we will put the link to register, just a Google form, in the show notes. But Saturday, March 28th in Mount Vernon, Iowa is the Big Time Strength and Football Clinic. Be great information. I know there's some really awesome presenters set to speak at that clinic. So please check that out if you're interested. All right, guys, enough from me. Let's get to Trevor Florendo. Enjoy. Hey, Coach Florendo, I really appreciate you coming on the Big Time Strength Podcast. You've been on my list for a while, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of a busy time. And you were kind of talking before in the recording. You got a new baby boy, so you're really busy, and to take the time to talk to us here today is awesome. So why don't you get us going and maybe just walk through your career so far and where you're at right now.
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate you bringing me on, Gage. This is actually the first podcast I've agreed to do. So after turning people down, I chose you. So
all right.
I really appreciate you bringing me on. But no, and all jokes aside. So yeah, I am the director of strength and conditioning and director of our newly developed sports science department here at Colorado School of Mines. I probably have as unconventional a path to where I am as anyone you'll talk to. I actually got a mechanical engineering degree from Mines, so I'm an alum. I had an emphasis in biomechanical engineering when I was going to school here. After my first year of playing football here at the school, I had a predisposed spinal condition that I was aware of going into college. And what we found out over time was that I was degenerating my discs, and that which ended up leading to a full fracture of my L4 and L5 vertebrae, along with some herniated discs that were being caused by the spinal stenosis. That was going into my second year, which took me out of football completely. And then after that time, Coach Adam Long, my strength coach at the time, who you and I had talked about previously, kind of, for lack of a better term, took me under his wing, would explain to me what we were doing in the weight room. I always enjoyed the weight room, so that's kind of where I found myself gravitating to for the next few years while I was still on scholarship, but just kind of helping out. So I kind of really fell in love with finding the why behind what we did in the weight room there. So ended up getting my degree from Mines. Wanted to continue in the field of strength and conditioning while I worked as an engineer. I'd actually studied for my CSCS, so the week after I got my mechanical engineering degree, I went and got certified in my CSCS. I called a local high school, Valor Christian High School in Highlands Ranch, and little did I know I met probably the most influential individual that I've come across in the industry. His name is Jamie Heiner, and I started volunteering at Valor Christian High School. While I was working a 9 to 5 as an engineer, I was coaching as a volunteer 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. at Valor Christian, and then again 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. every single night.
Wow.
And I did that for 18 months while I worked as a mechanical engineer. And then, crazy situation, my head coach here at Mines ended up leaving to another school, and we got a new head coach that came in. The new head coach at the time was looking for a guy to run the strength and conditioning program, and one of the carryover football coaches on staff say, hey, listen, one of our football alums used to help out in the weight room. He's currently certified, doing the job down at Valor Christian. I'm sure he would come volunteer for us. So I volunteered here at Mines with the football team for a little over a year before I started to take on more teams. You know, they found out what I was doing. It was working. So now I was in Golden from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. every day, and then drove back to my engineering job, which ended up being less and less hours a day. And then I was back here 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. And I did that for another, 6 months after that. So now I'm a solid 2 years after college, and finally the athletic director here was like, listen, do you want to make this a full-time gig and be our full-time director of strength and conditioning? And without hesitation, I said yes. I left engineering behind. I started here in 2016 full-time, had no idea what I was doing in terms of being a director. I did not have a traditional GA-ship. I did not have a traditional assistantship. I had some great mentors in the field who taught me more about how to be a man and lead with integrity as opposed to the X's and O's of strength and conditioning. So all I had to go on was my certification and the hundreds of strength and conditioning books I had read, and then my own training experience. So, in the last 4 years, I've built a department from the ground up. Now we don't have any full-time assistants, but I oversee 4 assistants who are here in part-time capacity, a nutrition department, and again, now a newly developed sports science department where I'm leading up research, both just simply anecdotal for our own purposes, and then also post-grad for our biomechanics department. I lead up research in there, all with intent to optimize performance of our athletes. So crazy roundabout way of getting to where I am, but I would not change it for the world.
Well, Coach, that's amazing trip through there, and just the hours you're putting in with volunteering and everything. You've certainly created that position there, and it's something I talked with Aaron Jung on my last podcast, and both of you very similar to where they created a role to keep you there. You've created so much value that they had to create a role to make sure you didn't leave, or to make sure that they could use your services. So credit to you for that, for taking advantage of that opportunity and continuing to build a program. I think you're obviously really young when you take over at the director role, and I share that experience with you. So I always enjoy talking to coaches who are kind of in that similar spot. So what I'd like to get from you a little bit on a follow up on that is What exactly are you looking at within your sports science department? I mean, what are some things maybe you guys are diving into, and how is that maybe directing some of your decisions you're making with your athletes?
Yeah, so this really was built from me. I had so many credits in biomechanics for my undergrad. I was only nine credits away from getting my master's degree in biomechanics. So I started the process of finishing that master's degree last semester, and it really just kind of sparked me saying, hey, we can really bridge the gap between training and science here. So what I started doing was just simple force plate analysis on what I had determined KPIs of certain injuries, specifically hamstrings. I did some actual post-grad research with our biomechanics department, and I'm currently doing it on the evaluation of hamstring injury, specifically mechanisms, and then more specific than that, training modalities to identify at-risk athletes.
Okay.
On top of everything else we're doing. So along the lines of getting guys in the motion capture lab, evaluating their gait, and then evaluating it from what most would consider a technical model. I have a lot to say on that. And then streamlining that to be more effective ways of doing it. So we can't get every athlete in the motion capture lab and then take that and then evaluate the hundreds of hours of film that would be on each individual gait cycle. So now what I'm currently doing is trying to find a process where we can, within 1 minute, evaluate an athlete at risk for hamstring injury. And I can't specifically divulge into exactly what we're doing research-wise, but really what it comes down to is we're evaluating eccentric rate of force development of the hamstring at its basically most tensile length. So at its longest length, eccentric rate of force development. Specifically, that's where I'm kind of working on right now. And then really what we're doing on top of that is just simply, I've got a few athletes who are in the biomechanics master's program with me, which is pretty ironic. So they'll come up with an idea, and then we'll just do an experiment that day, just simply an anecdotal experiment that day. See if it goes anywhere. I'll kind of run it by the biomechanics head here on campus. Hey, could this turn into a real hypothesis to test? He says yes or no, and we kind of have a running list of that. So it's a very brand new department, but it's super exciting. And then on top of that, what I've really been doing is kind of breaking down all of our strength and conditioning data. And this is aside from the biomechanics. This is more on the strength and conditioning side. Breaking down all of our strength and conditioning data that I've acquired over the last 4 years full time when we've had official testing protocols, and breaking down what actually is translating to the field. So if you look at the transfer of training equation, some of the work that Dr. Matt Ray at Indiana does, he's big on transfer of training. He's got this huge list of exercises that actually correlate to performance. And that's kind of what we're doing here, trying to find what actually helps us. And some of the things I posted on Instagram and got some really hateful DMs a few weeks ago. I posted something along the lines of, I got a question in a question and answer session that says, what's something that a viewpoint of yours that's changed? And I said, more than likely athletes don't need to be deep squatting with heavy load as often as they're doing it.
Yeah.
I said something along those lines. Every athlete should be able to deep squat, but they don't need to heavy load them as frequently as they're doing it. And you would have thought I committed treason with some of the DMs I got. And so it's interesting conversation, but that's just simply what we're finding in part of our research. So got off on a little tangent there. So circling back to your original question, that's some of the stuff that we're doing with the new department.
Well, I'm glad there's people like you to kind of lead that, and I'll just ask you what you find, and then I'll implement it from there. So
hey, that's simple. It's a simple way of doing it. I'll keep you up to date.
All right,
Send out a newsletter.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then with that too, you mentioned nutrition department. How do you guys attack nutrition with your athletes there?
So it's literally started with me doing PowerPoints to every single team, and it has now come to the point where we have a full-time nutritionist on staff.
Great.
And that has been simply from trial and error, that has been the most effective method of improving athletes' nutrition. We did everything from providing a very small-scale refueling station. We currently provide post-workout supplementation to athletes, but we've done everything from again, providing post-workout supplementation, providing a refueling station, giving them what we think they need as opposed to teaching them how to fish, for lack of a better term. And this has just been much, much better. Getting someone who can individually consult with athletes and not treating everyone basically the same and kind of like a blanket PowerPoint presentation like you'd find in an ebook. So her name is Claire. Claire has just done a phenomenal job with that. And we still kind of consult more specifically with the football team when there are guys who have some abnormal weight gain. We'll call them needs for lack of a better term, but some abnormal weight gain needs, we certainly kind of step in there. But for the most part, it's basically gone from us trying to treat everyone the same and giving them what we think they need. And now there's one person who actually teaches them how to take care of their bodies. So that's what we're doing in the form of nutrition.
Well, I think that's great. And I'm banging my head against the wall right now, just recently with with our nutrition, because we're just in the time right now where we're kind of treating everybody the same. We just kind of got this base, simple habit curriculum we're trying to get our athletes to do. And we have football guys doing meal logs right now. And it's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, what is going on here? So I'm just trying to find ways to really attack that. Yeah.
Yeah. As part of back when we had hard copy off-season training manuals, this is 3 years ago now, at the back of their manual would have their training log for the day, and then they'd have their nutrition log for the day. And some of the things we get, even after the hours of presenting and the hours of education we'd provide the guys would be, I had a bag of Fritos and a can of Chew for lunch. It's like, really?
Yeah.
So this is a much better option for us.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Coach. So, you're in this role and you've got a lot of teams there. How many athletes do you work with, Coach?
400 plus. Our cross-country team is quite a few athletes, and I don't touch them. They won the national championship, and I do have nothing with them, so I can take no credit for that. Track team, a few athletes here and there, but for the most part, we kind of are separate. And then, other than that, my assistants or myself has direct oversight of every program.
Gotcha. So
over 400 athletes.
Yeah, so you got a big number there, and obviously, like you said, it's you and those four kind of part-time assistants. So, are you using any type of resources or tools to maybe kind of streamline some stuff for you, or just help out with just efficiency or whatever?
Yeah, so we use Team Builder for our online interface for most teams, and that's certainly been the most effective way of getting them their training when they're away from school. On top of that, we have our velocity-based measuring tools where that's really where football tracks all of their weights and gets their program. And then, we have our force plate technology. But other than that, we really just use Team Builder for effectively managing the training of the day and getting programs to athletes.
What velocity-based systems do you use there?
So I actually just purchased Train with Push, the push bands, in this last off season. They are phenomenal, especially for instant feedback, and that's the reason I bought them. More so, if obviously we don't have the budget to buy. We have 14 racks in our football weight room, but I don't have the budget to buy 14 GymAwares.
Right.
For what I'm looking at, I need more of a bar path, time to peak velocity, etc. So, but for what the athletes are looking at, it's perfect. It gives them instant feedback, and it's all about intent. And that was something that I wanted to change moving into this off season. Our intra session, so our daily volume is down over 40% from last year. Or no, sorry, our daily volume is down over 60% from last year. We used to lift for 70 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and now we lift for more like 25 if you take out the speed work we do. So intent of exercise was everything. Was so important for me to find a way for guys to actually get instant feedback on what they're doing, just so we don't waste any of those reps. So Train with Push has been huge. Those guys have been incredibly helpful. And it sounds like they've got some pretty cool updates in the works that I can't really divulge, but it's an exciting time to be a Train with Push customer. So there's my completely non-biased promotion of Train with Push.
Yeah, they'll send you your check in the mail, so that's good.
Exactly.
So, Coach, how are maybe some ways? I'm sure, like you said there, you don't have the budget to buy a million things. So, are there any things that you're doing to maybe get some additional funding for your department?
Oh yeah. So if you follow our Instagram at Iron Diggers, I ad nauseum promote our apparel line, which is Iron Digger. So our school nickname is the Ore Diggers. And when I was in school here, I don't even remember how it came about, but I was like, man, iron ore. Iron digger sound a lot better than ore digger, especially when it comes to the weight room. Yeah. So then I literally just made these custom ink, disgusting looking. They were like purple T-shirts as soon as I graduated, and I would wear them around when I was training at my 24-hour Globo gym. And even the most random people would come up to me and be like, "What is that? That's a cool shirt. Hey, is that a mine shirt?" And then so I kind of started thinking, hey, I might have something here. So then, fast forward a few years as a volunteer, I kickstarted this, we call it the Iron Digger fundraiser, and it started with just one T-shirt, one color, and we raised $2,000 from just selling to the football team, and that bought us a pitch shark. Nice. And then, I've scaled that every year, and now it's a full-blown apparel line. We have an independent store that we run, and it funds two different assistants for me. And that is really, I promote it. I invest in money in improving the actual product itself. I invest time in talking with alumni specifically who are buying it, what they want more of, what they would like to see more of, how we can change the product. So a lot goes into that. And it's basically like running my own clothing company on the side, and it's freaking tiring, but the return on investment for us has been invaluable. So that's our big fundraiser. Other than that, we do a few things here and there, but they don't really raise more than probably $1,000 a year. And when we struck up a partnership with a protein company called, which people who listen to this podcast have probably been contacted by them, but they're called Built by Strength. They do a good little fundraiser for us. And then there's a few other simple ones here and there that we do, but really our big fundraiser is our Iron Digger T-shirts, or our Iron Digger apparel line.
Well, I think the way you did it, I think is pretty. It is just very effective on not just we've done that here too, but not to that extent. Something I definitely wanted to maybe try to expand here going forward. But like you said, like fundraising, you don't think of that when you get in the field as a strength coach.
No,
like I'm not going to fundraise for my department until you get on the job day one and like, oh, I need to get some money for these things. So I'm really interested in that question a lot, and I think, like you said, it's very tiring. But on the back end, like you said as well, you're funding two assistants out of it. So that's huge. So, all right, Coach, let's maybe switch gears a little bit. Maybe talk a little bit of programming, some X's and O's here. So what are maybe some methods that you're using that you really like and had success with?
Oh, man. So I'll regress that a little bit. So I dabble as a competitive weightlifter. When I got into strength and conditioning, I focused on what I knew how to do really well, and that was teach the clean, the power clean, the snatch, the power snatch, the jerk, the split jerk, the power jerk, all the Olympic lifts, and I had all the plyometrics. I had a plyometric program written what I thought was perfect. I had a weightlifting program written how I thought was perfect. And then for our strength lifts, we utilized, for our back squat, front squat, bench press, single leg stuff, single arm stuff, we had a different program. And I had this beautiful flow of everything, from plyometrics to weightlifting movements to strength movements. And now we kind of just do what works, and everything is together. And so I guess I'll just kind of lay out a typical off-season week for us with football, and that probably gives you a better macroscopic view. On Mondays, we're much more focused on strength speed. We're focused on power development, more in that mid to upper realm of the concentric force velocity curve. If we're dealing with weightlifting movements, we're looking at peak velocities, anywhere from 1+ meters per second. If we're looking at strength lifts, we're looking at average meters per second as opposed to peak. It's like a typical Monday would be power clean from the floor with some clean pulls. We're looking at anywhere from 2.1 to 2.5 peak meters per second. And then as we move into like a split squat, we're looking anywhere from, 0.8 to over 1.0 meters per second. And then we'll finish with usually some isometric posterior chain on that Monday, but really we're only focused on 2 to 3 exercises on a Monday. And that's, preceded by a lot of acceleration work that we'll do.
Okay.
Moving into a Tuesday is kind of what I'll call like our bro sesh day. So we come in and it's decreasing volume throughout the off season, but we'll do basically higher rep strength. And that's strictly upper body. So I tell the guys we have our competition runs on Tuesday morning, and then the guys have to come back again later on in the day on Tuesday. Usually not very fun if you have to do anything lower body. So it's strictly upper body. We focus on our neck on our Tuesdays. A lot more dumbbell work, especially unilateral higher rep ranges. And then Wednesday we come in, we're much more speed strength focused. So like on our strength exercises, we're over 1.2. Plus average velocity. On our Olympic lifts, we're over 2.5 peak velocity meters per second. Wednesday we'll usually see like a lighter Olympic lift, whether it be a barbell snatch or a hanging power clean, a dynamic back squat. We do utilize box squats. That's something I brought back this year. Or whether it be accommodating resistance exercise, but we're really focused on speed strength that day. Our run that day is much more focused on top end sprinting, so we focus more on B or cycle mechanics. Our plyometrics are more continuous effort as opposed to single response effort on Monday, and then we'll finish up with an eccentric focused hamstring, starting with a slower eccentric, early in the off season, moving to a fast eccentric later in the off season as we get closer to spring ball. Thursday is strictly positional work. They do that on their own or with their coach. And then as we move into Friday, that's our heavy day of the week. That's everyone's favorite day of the week. We'll heavy bilateral squat, we'll heavy bilateral deadlift or RDL in some capacity. One of my favorite exercises to utilize on Fridays is actually snatch deadlift, because in absolute magnitude, they're not really moving an incredibly high expression of what they're capable of moving, but it feels so heavy just
right.
with widening out their hands, keeping their chest up. So that's actually become guys one of their favorite strength exercises to do. And then we'll heavy bilateral press with a barbell. So Fridays, you promise them, you dangle the carrot in front of them, and that gets them motivated to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. So that's kind of, macroscopically looking at a week. Diving into that more, the biggest change I think I've made in my programming, I think I already said this off season, is intra-session volume. We're spending so much less time lifting weights this off season, and our guys' numbers are through the roof. We're only spending 1 day a week really focusing on heavy bilateral exercise, and spending the rest of the time either working on unilateral strength or strictly power focused or even velocity based focused. And our guys are already, and we're not even done with off season, hitting PRs in all of their exercises, bilateral strength exercises, unilateral strength exercises, and their Olympic lifts. So that has been very cool to see. And we were a team that already had 37 guys clean over 300 pounds, and we're gonna surpass that again this year. And we've actually done way less weightlifting. So doing more with actual less intra-session volume has probably been the most beneficial for us this off season, and then spending more time actually focused on power development. So. Does that answer your question in terms of programming?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Okay.
I would just, while you're saying that, I'm thinking this less is more concept, kind of a minimum effective dose, and then paired that with your ability with the push bands to really drive intent. Do you think that's kind of
Right.
the perfect recipe to what you got going on right now?
Oh, 100%. So what I've spoken with the team about a few times is with the push bands, my whole goal on that is, one, you cannot play football without intent, especially on the lines. And that's an area where, with the loss of Coach McGlinchey, we have to keep our defensive line playing at the highest level. So how can we even try and emulate that in the weight room? Well, bring the highest intent to every day. To bring the highest intent to every exercise, bring the highest intent to every rep. So that's something with the push bands we've really been able to do. And then on top of that, breaking down for the guys the difference in volume in a training session that we're doing this off season versus last off season. In any given day, we're doing over or close to 60% less reps than we did last year alone. So that makes our margin for error when it comes to quality reps so much higher. So what I told the guys is the reason we're using the push bands is because we can't waste any reps.
Yeah.
So now I can go back into our push cloud and I can see, we're doing a split squat and your first two reps were over 1.5 meters per second, but see this third one, it looks like you were kind of just coasting through it and you were at 0.5 meters per second. Why is that, Joe Schmo? And that's not a real example, but that's something that I've kind of promoted with the guys, and a thought I've tried to incept into their heads is we cannot waste reps. So visually allowing them to see feedback of them not wasting reps has been, quite frankly, an invaluable game changer to this offseason in terms of dropping the volume but increasing the intent of every single rep, because it is that much more important.
Yeah, and I got another follow-up to that, and I think I'm curious about this, with the culture of sport itself. I think, the grind and all this, and it's like if you're not doing everything to a high volume, you feel like our athletes feel like they're not working hard enough or whatever it is, So, like, do you get athletes saying, like, Coach, I want more, I want I want to keep working? Like, what's your response to that in a way that doesn't discourage the work ethic, yet gets them in the mind frame of, like, trust the process, if you know what I mean?
It's been a long time coming, and fortunately for me, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to school here. So when I came in 2015 or 14 as a volunteer, 15 as a volunteer, I automatically had kind of a rapport with guys. And that's something that, again, I've been lucky that has never really faded. So I can't really say that I've implemented any strategy to really make the guys, buy into anything I'm saying that has really been more effective than simply just me being here, both as a player and now as a coach. But we certainly do have the guys who in the past have tried to come in and do extra work on their own, and I've seen it be detrimental to their performance.
Right.
I take those specific guys aside as to not affect the work ethic of anyone else who might be on the lower end of maybe not putting in enough work. So I take those guys in, the guys who I think are probably doing too much, and I show them our Catapult GPS data.
Yeah.
I show them the total volume of work that they're doing, and then I add in the theoretical volume that they're adding on top of what they're already doing and how that can be really detrimental to their performance, especially gauging that towards what would be required of them in any part. We'll just use football as an example. What would be required of them in a football game? This much volume of high-intensity effort, and it's usually astronomically lower than what these guys are actually doing in a given week, especially when you account for what they're doing on their own. And this really comes to play more in the summer when we have guys here for hours a day running routes, doing position work before we run and lift. Trying to get that number or that total time down a little bit has been difficult, but really not anything that I've had to try super hard at. Guys are usually pretty receptive to that. They're
Good.
Pretty intellectual guys here.
Yeah.
So I wish I could say I had some sort of buy-in secret, but really I don't.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and that makes sense. It just when you were saying that, it's like I just had a conversation with one of our athletes here just a couple of weeks ago, and we're obviously in the off season doing a bunch of stuff, and on his free time, he comes in and I walk in and he's doing like a trap bar deadlift at like 405. I'm like, okay, all right. So I like I like it, but let's talk about how this fits into what we're doing right now, and it may or may not be a good idea, So anyway, moving on here, I wanna talk about, and we obviously discussed a lot about what you've done with your program, so far in the last 4 or 5 years. But what's next? I mean, what's the vision for your department, and where are you taking it here, maybe in the next 3, 4, or 5 years?
So this one hits with me because, again, I obviously have more of a technical, like a STEM background as opposed to an exercise science or like a coaching background. And I kind of relate this to, unfortunately and tragically, it seems like every summer, every off season, there is a fatality related to an off season training program. And you see, unfortunately, and again, tragically, coaches losing their jobs, obviously athletes losing their lives, families losing loved ones because of, not necessarily because of this, but there is some correlation in especially higher ups' eyes. So you see some schools, I believe Kansas is one of them now, where the strength and conditioning staff is under the medical staff.
Right.
And a lot of people have this opinion where strength and conditioning will be fully absorbed by the medical field in the next 10 plus years, just for the safety aspect, for the liability aspect of it. I do not believe in that, not even one ounce. Where I actually kind of see it going is segmenting even more specifically, where people who have a say in energy system development have to have some form of medical licensure. And while as coaches, we probably know that that's not going to be a practical solution to programming sets and reps to a conditioning session, it more than likely is going to be a necessity in the next 10 plus years.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fed into my vision along the lines of, I firmly believe or strength and conditioning as it is now will be more of what we call athletic performance, which will be encapsulated by multiple licensed individuals in their specific field. There will be, in my opinion, again, there will be a death to the all-encompassing motivator with no specific scientific skill. I think that there will be a licensure required for an actual sports nutrition. I think there will be a licensure required for an actual exercise physiologist who will program sets and reps for athletes. I think there will be an actual licensure required in the field of biomechanics for perhaps that same person who's programming sets and reps, or that person who's performing sports science data acquisition. I believe that there will be an actual licensure required in the form of bioenergetics for anyone who's overseeing athletes on the field. And perhaps that will be an all-encompassed license. I just don't see it being that way, because I think that the field is going to need to become more specific in order to add more value. And this is going to be a massive tangent, and forgive me, but you kind of alluded to it before, and you said adding value. You know, we added value, so they created positions for us. Well, for the young strength and conditioning coach who's complaining that he's not getting $30,000 a year as a starting salary with a master's degree and 5 years of internship experience, guess what? So do thousands and thousands and thousands of other people with that same experience and credentials that are looking for that same position. What does that do? That devalues the position that you're looking for, and the people who are pulling the strings can get, quite frankly, anyone to do that same job. Yeah. Well, I'm different. I played Division I football. Who gives a rip? I did this. I interned for Cal Dietz. Who cares? Like, honestly, who cares? You have to be unique and add value to the position that you're trying to apply for, or just like you said before, create your own value and create your own position. Make yourself so damn valuable that they cannot afford to not have you. And shut up on social media when it comes to strength coach salaries, because quite frankly, on average, they've never been higher in a time where the field has never been more saturated. So there's this dichotomy of what would traditionally be a supply and demand curve. Strength and conditioning is way different. There's tons of supply, not very much demand, yet the salaries are through the roof. So what really do you want from it other than a free handout? So regressing, getting back to specific licensure of positions, I believe that's really where the field's going to go. You're going to find people who are so committed to one specific area. For example, if I'm looking to add to my strength and conditioning staff a guy who's exceptional in rehabilitation to bridge the gap between athletic trainers and strength and conditioning coaches, that guy is worth $50,000 a year to me. I'm going to hire that guy. Yeah. And that's only going to motivate him more to be better and better and better at what he does. So that, in my opinion, is more of a vertically integrated approach to strength and conditioning. It's the old adage, half an inch deep, mile wide, or vice versa. That's kind of where I see the field going, and that's where I see our department going, which was the original question that you asked. I specifically have targeted individuals with unique skills to fill these positions that I have. While they all are certified in strength and conditioning from one of the two accredited agencies, they all have their unique skill set. And above all else, they all want to get better, especially at that unique skill set. So I have a guy who absolutely kills it, who has a physical therapy background, but he's a strength and conditioning coach. I know that's a guy who I want to expand his role on the staff, especially when it comes to return to play protocols and getting every athlete with him in addition to the teams that he oversees and training their strength and conditioning. So that's my vision for our department. On top of that, I want to create the most wholesome, robust biomechanics of sport performance lab in the country. For those listening that don't know what Colorado School of Mines is, we are perennially ranked in the top of the world when it comes to engineering degrees. Why can't we, and this is a question I've asked with our biomechanics head, why can't we create that same thing for a biomechanics lab here? We have the resources. So that's our mission right now. And then obviously expanding, we have visions to create an athletes only training table, just like you'd see at a Division I school like Nebraska. That's where we want to expand the nutrition department. We want to expand our mental health for athletes by bringing on not only just a contracted out, but a full-time, athlete counselor and a full-time athlete mental coach. So expanding vertically all the roles that we currently have without sacrificing, quality would be the future of our program here at Mines.
Well, I'm right there with your vision of just the industry itself, where it's going, and some thoughts on where it's currently at right now. And I think just to add on that, I don't want to, in risking starting another tangent, which is great if it goes. I love them. But you got that position created for you because I think the underlying principle, just, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're a problem solver, not a problem identifier. And I
Yeah.
think we got so many coaches in our industry just want to just identify problems and complain about the entire time. And what you said
Yeah.
in there, I think is just 100% true. Like administration, when it comes down to it, they'll find someone else that can do it if you're not willing
Yep.
to do it and make the best that you can out of it. So stop complaining about stuff that really you have no control over,
Yeah.
and just be the best you can possibly be and go solve some freaking problems. Like, I don't
Right.
know. It's funny that you brought that up because I've just been seeing that a lot lately. I've actually talked to my staff about that earlier this week. So I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, and you've had Coach Isaiah at Metro State on before. He's a guy in that same realm. Like that's a dude who started from nothing down at Metro State with, quite frankly, far less resources than we have here at Mines, and now he's got 2 full-time assistants because he simply was finding solutions to his issues as opposed to just broadcasting his issues. And when you said that, I just thought about Coach because him and I have a really good relationship, and he's just down the road. And I know that you've talked to him before,
Yeah.
but there's another guy who he found solutions to issues, and now he's got he found 2 full-time salaries at a Division I school that's a commuter school without football. So, if anyone listening wants to really talk to someone who's good at finding solutions, there's your guy right there.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a beast. There's no doubt. Coach, kind of the last big question I have for you here is maybe what are some of your favorite just professional development resources, maybe some books, articles, whatever that you kind of dive into?
Mine fluctuates so often. So obviously right now my big focus is on all the research we're doing. So right now I'm much more on the technical side in the Journal of Biomechanics, finding what we can apply to our own training. Let's see, other things, obviously just staying up to date with the latest research in the field. I think that's one way for people to keep their mind sharp. And honestly, I look at social media, I find what some of the coaches I respect are reading, and then I go order those books.
Yeah.
And Mladen's new one that just came out, the agile periodization approach, that one's in the mail. I cannot wait to dive into that. Joel Smith, obviously with speed strength, created a lot of buzz in the last year. That book is a good read. But then, other than that, for continuing ed right now, my continuing ed is discovering new trends. And, I'll leave off the last big question you had with this is my continuing ed comes from my own curiosity of expanding on what I haven't seen before. So I think that right now in the world of strength and conditioning, we live in a very regurgitated, very much a realm in people just doing what's been done before. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I believe Dr. Brian Mann said, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to read what's been done in the past and then do that. While I wholeheartedly agree with that, I do think that there comes a point where if you're only regurgitating what you've read in the past or what you've done in the past, and you're not actually evaluating how you can optimize that, then you're at a creative standstill. And if you're just completely and constantly confined to the limits of what your eyes have seen, you're in for a world of hurt when it comes to professional development. So read. Find the latest trends in research. Find the latest trends in what you're interested in. Let that spark your curiosity, and then go out and innovate or find a way to optimize that for what you're doing. That's really my continuing ed. I'm constantly creating situations for both myself and my staff where we can be like, oh, that's an interesting number. Let's dive into that. And then we find research on that. Oh, answer our own question. So it kind of goes back to, again, teaching a man to fish versus giving him a fish.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that. I would say my biggest continuing ed resources are, Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, Journal of Biomechanics, and then really just kind of scouring social media to see what people are reading nowadays. Because if people are reading it, there's probably a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Coach. Again, really appreciate just the time you've given us here today, and I do want to finish up with just kind of 4 quick questions, just kind of rapid fire.
Yep.
First thing that comes to your head.
Yep.
Favorite
I
office
didn't
snack?
practice for this, by the way. I
All
did
right,
not
sounds
practice
good.
for this.
What's your favorite office snack?
I do not snack. It's the weirdest thing ever. I will not snack. I only eat huge meals.
All right. Well, that's the most unique answer I've had on that for sure.
Yeah,
Fair
it's
enough.
really weird.
Favorite quote. Sorry, favorite quote of all time.
Gosh, I really want to flip the script on this one too. I'm sorry, Gage. So my least favorite quote of all time
That's fine.
is "How you do anything is how you do everything,"
Yeah.
because that's so not true. Anyone who says that, really, so you're telling me that you make your bed with the same intent that you coach? That's just like, maybe you do, but that's not true. Like, literally, it's not true. I get the premise of it, but I don't preach it because that's not true. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I flipped the script on you.
My least favorite is easier said than done. Well, that's I mean, everything's easier to say than to do it. So
yeah, exactly. While I totally get what guys are saying when they say both of what you and I have mentioned, literally that's not true. And some of the most respected coaches in the world have said that, like Tommy Moffitt at LSU. So don't get me wrong. That guy is amazing, but it's just not true.
Yeah.
So
next
question.
You got 15 minutes to train. What are you doing?
Sprint work.
Nice. Good. All right, last one is maybe a small school coach or 2 or 3 or however many that you think just does an outstanding job and deserves a shout out.
Oh, man. To be honest with you, I have lost track of who you've spoken with. 2 of my favorite guys, just because they're in our conference, are Coach EJ and Coach Mick at Shadron State in Nebraska. I love those guys. I talk to them all the time. They're 2 guys with really open minds. Coach EJ is the head, and then Coach Mick is his really his name's Chase, but they call him Coach Mick. He's his GA. They're doing a very good job at Shadron State. A football program that kind of fell off in the last few years, but they are busting their butts to get them back on the map. And then one that you probably have not heard of is the current director of strength and conditioning at Valor Christian High School in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and that's Brian Glover. He's a guy who I've never personally worked with. He kind of took the helms after I left there. He does a phenomenal job there, and you could really learn. That's a guy who knows everyone. Like Dan John on speed dial, got it. Boyd Epley, got it. Like, that is a guy who knows everyone. He's been around the block. So there's 3 guys that are doing a phenomenal job that if anyone gets an opportunity, they could learn a lot from.
Great. Coach, again, this has been just spectacular, and I really appreciate your time. I'm going to have your contact info in the show notes. If our listeners want to reach out to you, is there a method or, a Instagram or email? Is there anything you prefer if coaches have questions for you?
Yeah, you can post my my email, which is just T and then Florend, so my last name without the O at minds.edu. I get tons of emails, but honestly, my Instagram inbox is like full every day.
Okay.
So, and it's just simply people asking questions. So that's probably the easiest way to do that.
Okay.
And that's at Iron Diggers is the only one I'll respond to. My personal one, I don't post anything strength and conditioning from, and that's private too.
Sure.
So just at Iron Diggers, and I will chat it up with anyone on any day, good or bad, because believe me, I've got plenty of negative DMs before.
All right. Sounds good, Coach. Again, thanks so much, and have a great rest of the winter and head into spring here there at Colorado.
All right, Gage, I can't thank you enough. Tell Coach Glinch and Coach Long that they're the men, and you have a blessed day.
Yeah, will do.
All right. See you, man.